Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Liz and this is Let's Get Lizical, where we do everything card making. And today we are going to make a card using color, but not having to color. So we're going to do a colored, no coloring card. And this is something I did a while ago that I posted on Instagram, and I said that I would do a video for it. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to be doing a similar video later in the week. This one's just kind of like a bonus one, and we're going to do it with a different technique. But for today, we're just going to be using some colored cardstock and white embossing to create this card. So I decided to use the Simon Spring Bouquet stamp set, and right now I'm just stamping the entire image that I'm using. I'm using like the rose bunches, and I'm doing it in Lawn Fawn's Noble Fur ink because I wanted them to be green. Originally, I was going to stamp these also on some green cardstock, but I thought it would just be a little bit too heavy because the stamp is pretty big. If you wanted to do this with individual stamps and do a few leaves here and there, similar to what I did in the image that I'll put up in the top left corner here, you can do it that way. But you could also do it this way where you're taking one big image and kind of like separating it into different sections. So that's what I decided to do today. And right now I was, again, originally going to pick one red color to use for all three of the flowers on the stamp, but I decided to do two of them in a darker color and one in a lighter red. That way you get a little bit more dimension from it. It helps break it up, and then it's not going to be one just big red blob in the middle of the card. So the two outer roses are going to be in this like darker, more burgundy red, and then the middle one will be in a lighter red. And right now I'm just heat embossing them in sections. I didn't think I needed to heat emboss the entire thing because it was just going to be wasting. So I'm just embossing the sections that I need. And then I'm using a brush to kind of brush away some areas because I'm going to fussy cut these out, but I'm still going to leave a bit of a border around them. So it's a bit better to brush as much away as you can. And then if there's still a little bit left over once it's heat embossed, I will show you two different ways that you can get rid of those little bits in a minute. So right now I'm doing the middle flower. I'm going to go kind of like back and forth. I originally thought I was going to be able to put the two darker roses on one piece of cardstock, but I just thought it would be a lot easier to do them all individually. So I'm going to cut another piece for that one after. And again, I'm just brushing away the embossing powder where I don't need it to be. It's not necessary to do this, again, because you can get rid of it afterwards. It helps it be a little bit cleaner, because taking away does sometimes leave a little bit of a, like the shadow of the white kind of, which you might see after. It's not, terrible for me anyway. If you're picky about that, then maybe try to spend a little bit more time trying to brush away the embossing around it. This flower at the top here is not fully surrounded. Like, there are some areas, but the only one that was actually touching this flower was the stem of the flower. So this one was a bit easier. If you're using individual images, obviously you won't have to worry about this, but because I'm taking one large image and kind of breaking up into smaller ones, it does make it look a bit better if you do spend the time to take away that extra embossing powder. You could also try to be a little bit more precise with your stamping of the clear ink on it, but it's just easier to do it this way, from what I've found anyway. And then I'm just gonna fussy cut these out. Originally I was gonna try to do it on my scan and cut. I was like, you know what, I don't want to fuss with that. These are quick and simple enough to cut out, so I didn't mind as much. And here I am. Yeah, so I'm just using a craft knife to kind of like scrape away little parts on the edges. And I also use a Tombow sand eraser in some areas afterwards to help, smooth it out a little bit. It does scratch your cardstock a little bit, but it's such a small area you don't really notice. And for this flower on the left side of the image, I didn't worry about, cutting too close around the edge of where the middle one's going to overlap it. So just kind of like think of how you're going to be layering these, how the image is meant to be quote unquote layered, and then you can just kind of like skip some areas and then just, you know, simplify it for yourself, and you not have to do it perfectly on the areas where things are going to overlap because they're going to get covered anyway. But yeah, so here I am. This one had a little bit more around the edges that I had to scrape off, so I used both the craft knife and the sand eraser for that. The sand eraser, you just have to be a little bit more careful, I would say, with the sand eraser, because if it's not a sharp point, and your eraser is a little bit more rounded, it obviously covers a larger surface area, so you just have to be really careful that you're not scraping away any parts that you don't want to. But if you do by accident, you can just use a white gel pen to help, you know, solidify that line again. I actually, off camera, once it's done, I went over a few of the lines with my white gel pen that maybe weren't quite crisp enough, and it does help it look a lot nicer and a lot cleaner. So I do that off camera, but just a tip for when you're white heat embossing on colored cardstock, if you do miss some areas or some areas are a little bit splotchy with the powder, you can just use a white gel pen to help clean that up. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to put the darker ones in the background, which is why I did them darker. And this one in the middle, I'm going to pop up a little bit of foam tape just to give it a bit of dimension. And then once that's done, I'm going to trim this panel down. I know I was going to trim it down originally anyway, but I was originally going to trim on the left side only, but I decided to trim all the way around just because right now these look kind of like they're floating. But the way I trim this right side here, I did cut through the flower a bit, so it kind of helps the image look less like it's floating and that it's, you know, kind of going off the plane of the matte layer, and it just like leaves a little bit to your imagination that there could be more beyond that. So it makes it more, I don't know, grounded in a sense. And then I was gonna back this in red, but I thought it was just too much red. I wanted the flowers to really stand out as they were, so I just decided to do it in black. And I was struggling with glue bottles lately, guys. This is annoying. So I just decided to get the Terrific tape out from Pretty Pink Posh. This was gifted to me from Yvonne, and this tape is great. We'll see how it holds up over time. I've not had good experience with tapes before because they tend to dry out after a year or so, and then things pop off. So we'll see how this tape works and if it holds up better over time. So I cut the black panel to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I am trimming it down just so that it's a thinner black border. I just did that so that I have black panels and then potentially a black card base. So I'm just kind of slapped my matte layer on top of that layer and then trimmed around it because it was easier than me trying to cut out the size that I needed and then go from there. I do that quite a bit actually. I'll just like have matte panels and then I'll just glue them in the middle even of like an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet and just kind of cut around it just because it's easier. You'll know things that are going to be flush with your matte layer because you're using the guide on the guillotine trimmer to help cut it out. I actually realized that my matte layer was a little bit crooked compared to the black one that I did, but it still worked out. So yeah. Right now I'm going to add on the sentiment, which just says sending love. I thought the other sentiment said thinking of you, but it says thank you. I originally wanted to use a thinking of you sentiment just so I could use this as like a sympathy card or just a just because card. But I think sending love also works for that. You know, as we get older, we tend to need more of these cards, unfortunately, but you know, that's part of life. It's good to have some on hand just in case something comes up, or again, this could be just a just because card. Say you're thinking of someone and just, you know, I'm sending my love along. And it's good to have, you know, a variety of cards in your stash for, you know, different occasions. I have a ton of cards for many different occasions, but thank you cards and sympathy cards I do not have a lot of. So I think those are the types of cards that maybe I need to stock up on a little bit more. So I'm just using my T-square ruler to try to get this straight because the bottom of the stamp is pretty straight, and I was like, for some reason, not doing a good job of this. And then I was like, oh, the ruler's too long. I need to kind of like tuck it into the door of the MISTI and get it, you know, flush with the other side. So I did that. And then I'm just going to add a few little clear confetti bits here. And then that's pretty much our card for the day. So thanks for joining me for today, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and let me know what your thoughts are. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe because I'd love to have you here. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content. If you are missing videos, I would unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then hit notification, because I have had somebody say that they're not getting my videos, and I'll send a post on that as well. But anyway, until next time, thanks. Bye.